I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus, I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus, I was evil. I never shook, baby.
He decided to join today.
Oh, okay. So we got an expert
We have
guest.
our guest here, expert at taking naps and disrupting me when I'm trying to get work done.
I like that second topic a lot.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Can you
expand on that? No.
Hey, so real quick, did you check out the John Goblikon?
Yes, I did. That was I love it so much. Like, I haven't listened to too much. I listened like probably half of the. I always say Tony Santino.
Oh, Andrew Santino.
Yeah, and I know it's Andrew Santino. I say because I played football with a Tony Santino, and I always do that. I was about to say Andrew. Yeah, I played college with a Tony Santino. Andrew Santino.
Yeah,
it's very funny. I love the idea so much. I love the juxtaposition between that, him hosting a pod and being the front of a heavy metal band.
Yeah.
Trying to get into the music. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, I don't care much for it.
Oh, but, no, you don't? Okay, I thought you did.
Not really. I mean, it's a weird type of and even then, like I'm not a huge fan of death metal. I love 80s death and black metal, but I don't care a whole lot more. I don't care much for modern stuff. But if Goblikon was ever to come to town, like do a show, I would totally go. I don't care if I don't like the music that much. Just like I just want to see.
When do you come to town? Are they not an LA band?
They are based in LA, but they're a legit band. Like they actually do tours. And so just for the hell of it, I even went to the website. And I was like, oh, like when's the next show? But it's like they're doing like a European tour, and then
so it's like they're like pretty big.
Yeah.
And what I love so much about the band is, I don't know if I said this on the pod last time or not. I can't remember. I love how like he's the only one dressed up.
Yeah.
Like all the other guys, I mean, they're definitely like heavy metal guys.
Yeah.
But they're not in like makeup or anything. Like, that's so funny.
I think it's kind of a joke. It was just sort of like, so I think the band predated him. And then like I think
really?
like the director, so they were getting ready to shoot a music video like 10 years ago, and then the director's like, hey, so for this music video, what if we got, there's this local comedian actor guy, what if we got him to, kind of, there's a playful element, so how we have him dress him up, then we'll do that. And then he just kind of became like Eddie from Iron Maiden. He just kind of became like the face of the band. I was like, oh, you're really funny, so want to come on tour with us?
Is he the singer?
Not really. He sings on some songs, but I think they were a full-fledged band before he came along, and then he's from the clips I've watched of them, he's kind of like the hype man. He just kind of dances around on stage, and
I see.
But sometimes he'll join in the singing. Sometimes he'll do comedy bits in between songs. So
gotcha.
But
all right,
yeah, good.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, I added it to my ever-growing podcast list.
I know
it follows, but I have unfollowed some. I'm kind of going through, and then we'll get into the topic today.
Yeah,
I don't know, Joe. I'm kind of going through a purge. I purge every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, and I know this may come as a shock. I'm getting kind of sick of Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm getting and social media in general.
Yeah.
I guess not that I'm never going to go on. I tweeted something today, but as like the go-to when I touch my phone, I'm realizing like it's kind of how I felt with drinking. And like I quit drinking for many different reasons. Most importantly is like my medical reasons and medication that I can't drink on. But others just like it was not enjoyable anymore given the effects. And I'm starting to feel that with social media in general. I think some has to do with the political climate. Some has to do with the slop that's out there.
Yep.
Some of it has to do with that everything is just becoming. It's like how all streaming services are just becoming cable again.
Yeah.
Commercials and becoming packaged. It's like everything's just becoming an amalgam, a Cronenbergian amalgam of like video slop.
Yeah.
Like it's so much bullshit. So much of it's fake, as in like humans, but not real situations. So much of it is fake as in AI. Some of it so much of it is like violent, and I'll click like not interested in this on so many things, and it still comes up. I, against my will, saw, I'm very sensitive about seeing animals get hurt.
Sure.
I really dislike it. I don't, unless it's absolutely necessary, especially, animals that are near and dear to me, like cats. And like against my will, I saw, something violent happen to a cat. I'm just scrolling.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I seeing this?
Yeah.
And that happened like a couple months ago, and I already started to get turned off.
Yeah.
But it's more of that shit that I'm like, this isn't enjoyable to me anymore. So like, for instance, I'm really diving into a new language, and I'm like, instead I'll do like Duolingo. Duolingo is not like a fallback for, you should lose a lot of things for language learning, but like, I'll just do that. I'll do like a lesson on the toilet, or when I'm like, have time instead of scrolling on Twitter. Again, I'm not deleting my Twitter. I'm not saying I'm never going to use it, or Instagram and this stuff. I'm promoting a new game. Of course, I'll always promote the pod, books I'm reading, but just, I don't know, man. I'm starting to feel like it's time to just have rethinking that sort of like that part of my life.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And I'm going through a similar thing too. I don't really post much on Twitter.
I noticed that actually.
Yeah, I don't have much to say, or at least I don't know. It I know you and I have gone back and forth about like, is Twitter better under Elon Musk, or has it just been kind of the same, but just kind of different? And I think I'm coming to the conclusion now. It's like, no, I actually kind of miss Twitter in some ways before the Elon takeover.
I think they're distinct, and I don't think either is great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely.
That's how I feel about it. So I'm not saying I want to go back to that, because I think that had obvious problems.
Yeah.
That we have spoken about ad nauseum on this pod, but I don't like where it is now.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm there mostly for memes.
Yeah, and I love memes. I'm a huge memes play a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And again, my Reckless Rec today is from Instagram. That's how if I didn't have Instagram, I would have found it. It's a spoiler, it's a band. But so again, I'm not getting rid of this stuff. And I actually put on a limit, like how you get you can put on limits for social media use on your phone.
Yeah.
You can pick the apps, and I have an hour a day for a handful of apps. But now that I like made something I have to promote, like a lot of that cuts into it. Like I'm posting stuff for my card game for Scepter, and I'm like, I catch myself like just overriding the limit. It doesn't shut your phone down. Like it just says you're at your limit. Okay, ignore it. Like, and I'm usually very good with self-discipline stuff. Yeah. But and that's what I'm also noticing too. I'm like, and also another thing is I think I told you, I stopped using social media on Saturdays. Like I did, and I was really good with it. But this last Saturday, I was promoting Scepter. I was in a store playing with my co-creator. Then I didn't, and then naturally you just kind of start looking at other shit, because you're posting about something that is unfortunately you can't publish a book or make a movie or make a card game and just be like, all right, now everyone buy it, everyone go see it. Like, it's not how it works. You have to promote stuff.
I've noticed that I have an addiction to YouTube shorts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean by shorts? Like what?
I don't even know if that's what they're called, but it's just like, like the short videos. If I go to they're called shorts. It's just really short. Like, so oftentimes like
horror
mostly,
ones?
No. So I mean, like, it's just like, I don't know what the limit is. It's like I think it's up to 2 minutes now, but for a while it was like 30 seconds was the max. And it's just like you can just scroll and just consume a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Very quickly. My feed would usually prioritize shorts from channels that I do follow. So at least like, oh, okay, here's a clip from a podcast, or here's a clip from a comedian that I like. But it also, of course, it mixes in a bunch of other stuff too. And I was like, shit, an hour's just gone by, and all I did was watch 100 short videos.
See, I don't have that problem. That's unique, because I love YouTube.
Yeah,
like, YouTube has taught me. I do a ton. Like, if you look at my YouTube algorithm, is like tons of medieval and Roman history.
Yeah,
card game stuff. Some sports stuff, a little political stuff. Like, I've also changed my podcast listening a ton.
Yeah,
where I listen to probably less than 50% now politics. In fact, definitely less. Like, I'd say a third. I listen to a ton of history podcasts now.
Yeah,
like all different types. some sports still, some random like just kind of talk comedian stuff.
Yeah.
And that's totally different. Like even 2 months ago, I was listening to like 75% politics podcasts.
Yeah.
I've cut down a lot on that. So this just feels like the next kind of inevitability, like the next wave, the next chapter of I'm changing. And I've gone through this before, like over the years, I've gone through this.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I found myself not getting as excited about certain podcasts that were more culture and politics related. I mean, like a podcast would show up in my feed, and I'm like, oh, they brought two people together who I never would have thought would be on a show together, and then like, oh, I'll listen to it tomorrow, and then I forget about it, and it'll show up again like a week later. I'm like, yeah, but they're talking about stuff that's no longer relevant. I don't give a shit about this anymore. So it's sort of like,
right, exactly.
So now I'm listening more either like podcasts that are like more comedians where it's just pure entertainment, or it's more in depth, sort of like film or literature or something like that, where it focuses on like a specific genre or something that like more, I guess, educational or informational now. So
I also listen to a lot of movie podcasts, but I actually quit one recently, as in like unfollowed it because they made the dumbest fucking comparison. So to be quick, and then we'll really get into our topic.
Yeah.
The movie there, and I like this podcast because I listen to one podcast that's like current events, current movie news, reviews, and I love them. It's these two dudes who actually live like I think in your neighborhood. We've talked about them, like these two brothers. I think they're twins actually. And then I listen to another new movie podcast that like they started following me, follow each other on Letterboxd, and again just like two dudes, like every movie podcast, they talk about movies, but it's also like I like them because they're random movies and they do stuff they like. And then this other podcast I've listened to a while, Unspooled, I'll just say it, like, yeah, they're very liberal. One's a movie writer for the LA Times, and one is Paul Scheer, who's like an actor who I like. And sometimes it like not everything's political, but they're reviewing 28 Days Later because of 28 Years Later that just came out.
Yep.
And they're talking about, and of course they're like, oh, was COVID made in a lab? Was it March? It's like they're actually doing more than what people used to do, which was like shut down that talk. And it's very obvious it came from a lab. That's not even like a point of contention anymore. But of course they're still like kind of hedging. And they're talking about 28 Days Later, that if you know the plot of it, and they're talking about, of course, how awful COVID is and the comparisons of the time of, was it like 9/11, and now we have COVID, so it's a new meaning, and yada yada. Yeah. And they're talking about how, the rage virus in the movie, if you remember, is made in a lab. Like they're testing monkeys. Some activists go in to free the monkeys. I would say don't free them even, and I'm being hypocritical here because I really dislike monkeys, but like don't free them, period, let alone that they have this rage virus. Yeah. And that ruins the world. Like it destroys the world. And of course, then they have to get on. And they're saying all of this, and the irony is so lost on them that they're like, oh, and now like this is why we should stop making vaccines, right? Let's take the, let's go and stop making vaccines and take the dyes out of Doritos, but let's stop making. It's like, you guys fucking dumb. Did you not hear yourself? You just admitted that, or likely that COVID came from a lab, which hurt the world, and that this movie that you're talking about, the world ended, more or less, because of testing vaccines, viruses. But they're so caught up in their own like political ideology that they can't see that. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like that's it. I have too many other. I have to go listen to Goblicon. Too many other podcasts. Now that kind of shit is just. These are just like the most typical fucking liberal elites that are so caught up in themselves they don't even understand the irony in what they're saying.
Paul Scheer is definitely a pretty insufferable guy, and like he's been in some good movies and shows and stuff, but he's really fucking insufferable.
Well, when do you see him be insufferable? Like,
I listened to him on Bill Maher's podcast, Club Random, and
okay, I follow that. I like Bill Maher.
Yeah, me too. And Bill Maher is a sensible, old school liberal, but I mean, Paul Scheer just kept interrupting and just kind of kept.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he was pretty bad.
Me. Are you sure you're talking about the same person?
He's bald, right? 2.5 Men. Yeah, that's the guy.
2.5 Men.
Yeah, he wasn't he on 2.5 Men or
no?
But I'm pretty sure.
No, he is bald. 2.5 Men. You mean with Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
No, dude, that's not Paul Scheer.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which show is he on that I'm thinking?
Paul Scheer's in The League. He's in a lot of movies, a lot of times like character. He's kind of like character actor, never really like the lead.
Huh. Oh well. Well, anyway, but yeah, no, he was definitely. I definitely know he was on.
Okay.
That.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
fuck their problem. I'm done. I'm done listening to it. It was just so stupid, and I could lose a podcast or two to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of John Cryer. That's what I'm thinking of.
Was John Cryer on?
John Cryer. Yeah, John.
Was he on Bill Maher or was Paul Scheer on Bill Maher?
Are they the same guy?
No, the same guy.
Look at John Cryer. Look at John Cryer. Oh, that's right. John Cryer and that other guy look a lot alike.
Paul Scheer and John Cryer don't look alike,
but they're both bald.
He's not. John Cryer's not bald in the show.
I know.
All right, lean into it.
Well, one of them was on Bill Maher's, and they were very obnoxious.
Because I only really know Paul Scheer from this podcast, like recently. Like I don't like follow him on Twitter. He's not like a big Twitter person, or So I'm like, oh, where'd you know he's insufferable? But
John Cryer, John Cryer was on Bill Maher.
Okay,
he was insufferable on that.
All right. So anyway. Apologies to Paul Scheer in that sense, but you're really dumb on them.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the topic.
What is it?
So this is from Kat Rosenfield, who's done a lot of great work. This is an article that she wrote in the Free Press. So this is one that you sent to me a few weeks back.
Yeah.
So the article is called "The Real Reason Actresses Are Rejecting Intimacy Coordinators."
Yeah.
Do sex scenes need to be tightly choreographed? A series of female A-listers think not, but critics say they're betraying me too.
Yeah, this is interesting because we have talked about over the years, like the death of the sex scene.
Yeah.
Sorry, like the death of the sex scene and like sex in movies in general. And I do think it's come back. Mm-hmm. I also think it's changed. So I've said, I think a few weeks ago, like the sex scene itself, I think is dead and probably won't come back. Who knows? But sex is definitely back in movies, like very much so, which it took like a hiatus there for felt like at least a decade, if not more.
Yeah.
And like intimacy coordinators have been, I know, like part of the conversation. I know, for instance, I was just watching what's his name show on HBO where it's Nathan Fielder where I don't know if you're familiar with Workers show, but there's an episode there where there's like intimacy coordinators play a part in that. So
is this the rehearsal or the
the rehearsal, which is very funny, very meta, gets kind of ridiculous, but I guess you want to and she does a good job. This isn't a very long article.
No, yeah.
Which does a good job here talking about like the horrors that started with sex scenes and then how they changed. And now there is sort of this like split opinion. And I was surprised where she ends up, I think, at the end. But let's get into that and see, because it may have somewhat changed my mind. Maybe I was on one side just from who I listened to.
Right.
And this may change your mind, which is good, which is why you read it different. I like Kat a lot. I read her first book, and she's always an interesting voice. Do you want me to read, or do you want to read?
You want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. So the story behind the worst sex scene ever filmed is itself like something out of the movies. I'm going to stop right there and say the sex scene she's about to describe is not the worst sex scene ever filmed. That would be in Munich. I've talked about it before. It's the most insane sex scene ever, as in like just bad, like nothing scandalous, just like a bad, ridiculous sex scene with Eric Bana and what's her face from Lord of the Rings. I always forget her name. She's also in The Leftovers. Great actress, but I forget her name. But anyway, so it was 1972, an apartment on Rue de l'Alboni, where Bernardo Bertolucci was making a film called Last Tango in Paris. Marlon Brando is playing Paul, a middle-aged man grieving his wife's suicide. Maria Schneider is playing Jean. Paul's much younger lover. The couple's intense and brutal relationship is already beginning to unravel. And this scene represents the beginning of the end, a brutal act of sexual violence in which Paul anally rapes Jean using a stick of butter as a lubricant. Have you seen Last Tango in Paris?
No, I haven't. I heard it's pretty good, except for that scene.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those movies where one scene, another anal rape movie is another anal rape scene, I should say, is like Deliverance, where like that scene just kind of overshadows. Like I have no idea what it's about.
Yeah.
If you had asked me, if you asked me now, actually, but before I read that, I would have no idea what any of that's about. I would have said, isn't that the movie where there's like a rape scene or something?
Yeah.
And Marlon Brando's in it. Like that's all I would have known about it.
Right.
So it's kind of infamous in that respect. All right. So, but Schneider, who was just 19 at the time, didn't know what was coming. Not just because the butter wasn't in the script, but because the 31-year-old Bertolucci and 48-year-old Brando conspired to keep her from knowing this detail. Bertolucci later explained that he wanted her humiliation to be authentic. I decided not to tell Maria because I was interested in her reaction, he said in a 2013 interview. And in fact, she was very humiliated, and she was right. Not because we used the most common thing in the kitchen, but because I didn't tell her. I mean, that's like criminal. Like, that's really, really insane. So when you hear that, you know, you're going to be very like already, if that's where you're starting from, it's like, yeah, that has to never happen again. And we have to do everything in our power to keep that from happening, because a 19-year-old was just raped for entertainment.
Yep.
Okay. So granted, this is an extreme example, but the 70s were different. Even when actors weren't intentionally kept in the dark about the content of their sex scenes, they definitely weren't consulted. Jane Fonda, in a recent interview with Women's Wear Daily, reflected on how irrelevant her input was when she filmed sex scenes then. In her day, it was unheard of to complain. You want me to say to a guy you're supposed to look like you're in love with, and you say, but please don't uncover my breast on the left side. You know, you don't do that. But times have changed. In the interview, Fonda praised the then unheard of, now ubiquitous professionals known as intimacy coordinators. I wish we'd had them when I was doing sex scenes, she said. She's the latest actress to voice her opinion about intimacy coordinators, who are currently, having burst into the spotlight in 2018 to much approval, going through a public identity crisis. Yeah, so that really gets us at the crux of this article.
But yeah, no, and it cracks me up, and we'll get more into it, but it does crack me up of like where, I mean, you know, it's perfectly emblematic of the Me Too movement, where it started off as something this should have happened a long time ago. Like, you know, this is a reckoning, right?
Stop.
And then it goes way too far. And then like the people who were originally in favor of it are going, so, you know, for example, I'm sure you've heard stories now of a lot of young women going, how come guys aren't asking me out anymore? And sort of like, well, you know, it was kind of a lot of guys were scared. We're frightened into like, you know, I don't want her to, so. Right.
And that's, and again, it's, well, yeah, there was absolutely date rape. I'm sure there still is. And there's terrible experiences for women. But then when you look at like what happened in season Sorry, where like, where's he been since his cancellation, like actual cancellation?
Yep.
And it was like a totally consensual, if I remember correctly, a totally consensual experience for both people. And after the woman had regrets or didn't like something, but didn't express it at the time, and ruined him.
She had plenty of opportunities to get up and leave. It's not like he was holding her down, and he's being a little pushy, but it's like he wasn't. There's nothing illegal about what he did. So
and it was not. Yeah, exactly. It was like those small interactions that can like ruin someone's life. And then some, you know, a lot of guys are thinking, well, this isn't worth it. I know in other things, like certain men won't like be in their office alone with a woman. Like they won't, whether it's a secretary or a coworker or, you know, whoever, a client, whatever it is. It's just, and that like in that climate, it's like the accusation is the conviction.
Like Bill Maher always says, he goes, you know, in America, we don't know how to just react. We always have to overreact. And I think, you know, like this is a good example of that.
Yeah, it's because people like attention.
Yeah.
And when you have the victimization, oppression Olympics, you have things that end up being, there are true extreme examples of whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? In this case, whether sexism, misogyny, literal sexual assault, rape, but then everyone wants to be a part of it. So they start taking minor interactions, uncomfortable situations. And I don't like, I do think this is something women have to deal with. I think that sucks. Like,
Sure.
I do think it's more difficult to be in public as a woman.
Yep.
They have to deal with unwanted attention. They have to deal, and I would say a lot of that attention is coming from, people that these same oftentimes very liberal women will bend over backwards to defend, whether they're immigrants from cultures that are much more misogynistic, or they're certain demographics that are just significantly more misogynistic and violent. Like, I mean, you just look at the statistics, but we also can't, people can get ruined for it is having a larger impact that I don't think people expected with this. There's like a decoupling of the sexes,
right?
That it is not insignificant. Like it is a big deal, where I think we're going to get to the point where maybe we're headed to where like Japan is going, where like the government has to like set up dating programs and people to meet each other because they're getting enjoyment out of other, other, whether it's video games or sports or books or working out, whatever it is. And there's very little, and they're not meeting people. So let's, and we're going to get into the specifics of the art here, which is movie making, or I guess TV making, but movie making specifically. Okay. The use of intimacy coordinators has become inevitably entangled with the Me Too movement, along with equal pay clauses. It became an article of faith that Hollywood had failed to protect vulnerable actresses during sex scenes, putting them at risk of coercion, trauma, and violence. Intimacy coordinators were supposed to mitigate that threat. Until recently, they were seen as somewhere between public safety officers and sexual hall monitors. Spontaneity and intimate scenes can be unsafe, actress Rachel Ziegler wrote in a 2022 tweet. Wake up. I don't know what that means. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously we did. I'm sure she wasn't going to have a nuanced or interesting opinion. Outside the industry, it's easy to see intimacy coordinators as political, a result of the sexual safetyism that swept America a decade ago. Recently, however, there's been, that was like the big bold line. I was kind of reading, but I'll skip that when I get to it. Recently, however, there's been a sea change. A number of actresses to whose safety intimacy coordinators are supposedly essential have expressed reservations about their presence on set. Gwyneth Paltrow, who was instrumental to the Me Too movement's success, recently made headlines by telling Vanity Fair that she and Timothée Chalamet asked their intimacy coordinator to step a little bit back while filming Marty Supreme. Paltrow said micromanaged sex scenes would have stifled her as an artist. Mikey Madison, who won an Oscar earlier this year for a performance as a sex worker in the film Anora, also spoke about her decision to forego an intimacy coordinator entirely. That surprises me because that movie has a lot of sex in it.
Right.
So that's really interesting. And she's not Gwyneth Paltrow. She's not some big name actress. And that was very interesting.
Right.
And surprising. For this, both women were excoriated in the press. The criticism of Paltrow was particularly savage. The Guardian lamented her comments as nothing less than a slow-motion asset stripping of Me Too. While classic Guardian, the Independent declared in a headline that she had betrayed all other actresses. But it's a little extreme. But scratch the surface of this more feminist than thou sniping. And what you'll find is that intimacy corners play a far more complex role in movie making than many give them credit for. And their history speaks to a fascinating debate over whether, in the creative world, the words good and safe are mutually exclusive.
There was some actor I don't remember who it was, the pretty famous actor, but from like the 60s or 70s or something. And he said that every time he was about to shoot a sex scene with an actress, he would say, if I get a little excited, my apologies. If I don't get excited, my apologies.
To mean
excited
like,
mean erect.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that mean like that, like an erection?
Yeah, but yeah, this is interesting because I mean, there are just so many great stories of how a famous scene in a movie was improvised. And so I can see how an intimacy coordinator can often stifle that spontaneity if it's just like, constantly choreographing every single movement and thrust,
Sure,
and kiss and everything. So but as we've kind of mentioned, Kat Rosenfield does a nice job of like looking at both sides of this. Of like, yeah, like there are times when it can be very uncomfortable for actresses, and they can having a third party on site, kind of walking them through, making sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I get that, and I don't think their role is to necessarily like choreographics. I still think that's the director. It's more of like, are you okay with this?
Right.
Like what are your what's your rider of like backwards cowgirl? Like what's what are you allowed? Is the actor allowed to grab your butt or not? Is he allowed to grab your hips? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Which does seem a little odd that you would need like a third party for that, but at the same time, it's like, if you're on a male dominated set though.
Sure. So this is where, again, like, I catch myself vacillating in this. It's like, I totally see it back when this 19-year-old, the actress in Last Tango in Paris.
Yeah.
Like everyone in a authority position was a male, I'm assuming, especially the director, you're dealing with Marlon Brando. When did Godfather come out?
72. So I think did that come out the same year as Last Tango in Paris?
Did it come out 72?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a little before that. Okay, so but
he's very famous at the time. So it's like, you're not gonna tell him no.
Exactly. And like I could get how it's like, yeah, you want someone in your corner. That's not only reasonable, that seems like necessary in that climate.
Right.
So, but is the climate that like these actors are in now, is it the same? And I would like, part of me wants to say like, this should be between the actors. What are they okay with?
Right.
And what are they, and what's a red line for them? I don't know. Maybe that's too simplistic. So let's keep reading.
Yeah.
All right. For a long time, the sordid and horrible story about Last Tango in Paris was treated like just another bit of filmmaking lore, not unlike other famous unscripted scenes featuring moments of genuine fear or pain or brilliance. Robert De Niro's mirror monologue in Taxi Driver, completely ad-libbed, the chest burster scene in Ridley Scott's Alien, the actors knew something was going to happen, but not that. When you're making art, sometimes the best thing is to let things get a little out of control, or so people said anyway. So yeah, I like that she brought, because what the thought I had when I first read this was The Shining, and how it wasn't so much like spontaneity, but how a director, like how what's his name, Kubrick like basically put Shelley Duvall through hell. To get that staircase scene. And like, I'm not okay with that. Like, if I was Shelley Duvall's husband, or brother or father or whatever, like, I would not be okay with that. Because that's not what she signed up for. But it makes good art. And all of these scenes, like the chest burster scene in Alien, that scene's better because the actors didn't know. Now, what if one of those actors had a fucking heart attack?
Right.
Would we be saying that today if someone died? Well, we probably would, but like that wouldn't be like, I don't know. A part of me wants to be like, well, actors are fucking gladiators and we're rooting for the lions. Like I saw that sometime. I didn't think of that, by the way, but like I want the entertainment, and that's what matters.
Right.
I'm married to an actor. I'll see how she feels about that. But what was the other one she said? Taxi Driver. That's who gives a shit about that. I to be honest, I think that's one of the most overrated scenes in cinema, but I won't go there.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Do you like? I don't think
that scene or that movie.
Oh, the scene. No, the movie's great.
Yeah, the scene. I mean, maybe it's one of those things where it's just like it's been like I've seen I saw countless parodies of it before I watched the original, and when I watched the original, I'm like, that's the scene that everybody's.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So.
Yeah. I love the movie.
Yeah, no.
I don't think that scene's all that special, like compared to the chest burster scene in Alien, or apparently this ass rape scene with Butter in Last Tango in Paris. Or the ass rape scene in Deliverance. Have you seen that scene?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
That scene was fucking gross about that scene, outside of just the fact that it was ass rape.
Yep.
It's like they're fucking like dirty.
Yeah.
They're like gross and disgusting. And
they're making pig noises and
yeah. Oh my God. And then he's like the guy, not I want to get into it, but he's like the most at the end of the movie, he's like the most normal one.
Yeah.
He got raped.
Yeah.
And he's like giving people like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. You were not okay. Like he got ass raped by a hillbilly. Anyway, I don't say ass rape anymore in this episode.
Yeah.
All right. The old school just wing it approach to sex scenes is also fueled by a ubiquitous sense that sexual attraction is the one thing actors can't fake, and perhaps don't have to. If you're making out semi-nude in a bed with, for instance, Brad Pitt, you probably don't have to pretend you're enjoying it. This attitude was bolstered by a critical apparatus primed to judge a film by the chemistry, or lack thereof, between the stars, and by Hollywood gossip press that has always loved nothing more than a celebrity couple whose romance started on screen. There's something seductive about the idea that in passionate moments, the veil between life and art becomes thinner than usual, or even slips away entirely. Sure, we all know that movies aren't real, but maybe love is. But this was before Me Too, and also before squirreliness about sex started to permeate Hollywood writers' rooms, as the culture became increasingly prudish about on-screen depictions of the physical act of love. What began with the objections of feminist critics to excessive male-gazing nudity and gratuitous sexual violence in shows like Game of Thrones soon gave way to generalized hostility to any and all sexual content, which younger audiences increasingly condemn as unnecessary. This leeriness toward fictionalized intimacy has grown alongside a sense that sex itself is inherently fraught and dangerous, and that those who engage in it put themselves at risk of emotional trauma, or worse, an anxiety reflected in the recent penchant of Gen Z and millennial progressives for choreographing real-life sex down to the millimeter by introducing elaborate rules of consent. So it's another one of those things that it's like it's never been safer in human history to have sex,
right?
In terms of testing and condoms and birth control, and
also like you can get HIV and it's not a death sentence like it used to be. Like
exactly, like and just like general attitudes in let's say, like just speaking for America, like we used to think that you can't rape your wife,
right?
Like judges used to rule that. They used to be in law.
Yeah.
That you can't rape your wife. And we've come a long way from that. And yet younger people are having less sex than ever.
Yep.
And it's always those correlations are always very interesting to me. I think other ones are like, it's not this. I think let's say pre-COVID, it was maybe never safer in the U.S. I think it was considered extremely safe.
Yep.
And then when pre-COVID and then defund the police and all that, like crime skyrocketed for very foreseeable and obvious reasons.
Yep.
But but yet like we were never so afraid. Like I don't know if that's like there used to be serial killers like everywhere in the US in the 70s, and people used to just die like it's in the old West, or whether it was cities, like people get killed all the time. It was so easy to get away with crimes back then.
Right.
So like even if maybe it's not the safest it's ever been, at least people could be brought to justice more than ever. Again, it's not, maybe it's just a consolation, but yet we're like as scared as ever. So
it's a weird sort of inverse correlation, because I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen or heard about this study that was like the more progressive you were, the more likely you were to think that unarmed black men were getting killed by the police by the thousands each year.
Yeah,
and then it's actually like the average number of unarmed black men killed by the police each year, like 8 to 12.
Yeah.
So it's like this is this weird inverse thing, and you see this all the time in a lot of political and cultural issues. But it's.
Well, I think another example would be like, and this might be broad stereotypes over generalizations, maybe it's a better word, but like parents in cities or lower income neighborhoods, maybe sometimes for reasons because like their control, like they couldn't helicopter parent. They had to work, or I think that's the generous is the ones, like a bunch had to work and a bunch were just negligent. Yeah. Whether that was alcoholism or drugs, and there's a bunch on each side. Yeah. But they let their kids do whatever they want. Yep. Where people in wealthier neighborhoods, suburbs, and much safer neighborhoods, they were the most afraid of having their kids kidnapped or harmed in some way. Yep. So again, it's just another one of those inverse correlations. Yeah. Love a good inverse correlation on these guys. Where was I? Okay. To some, the promise of intimacy coordinators was that they would do the same thing for the sex scene. And yet, the idea that actors require on-sex nannies to keep them from hurting themselves or each other is not one generally shared by the intimacy coordinators themselves. Ask one of these professionals what they do, and the answer is far more straightforward. Think of a stunt coordinator, except for sex. Many started out as performers themselves. Before the cameras begin rolling and before anyone gets naked, they'll meet with the director, the crew, the actors to discuss the choreography of the scene. Double check the nudity riders. That's a thing. Yeah. And offer accessories like knee pads that it's kind of funny. The actors might not think to ask for. And far from putting a damper on creativity, the self-stated goal of most intimacy coordinators is to make life easier to make good art. Real quick, I think I would just mess with the intimacy coordinator. Yeah, I need a giant dildo for this scene to really just like put me in the mood, and like they'll just be like, and then I'll like start texting them, and their assistant will be like running around Hollywood with a bunch of dildos flopping around in a bag.
This is what I need on set. I need car battery, broken glass, rusted chains. They're not gonna be in the scene. I just need them around just to get me in the mood.
Puts me in the mood. Yeah. All right. Ida O'Brien has been a professional intimacy coordinator for more than a decade. She recently worked with Florence Pugh on the film of We Live in Time. I saw that movie.
How was it?
Don't remember. Not great.
I just hate the title. What a stupid title.
It's a very bad title. I think I said that in my review. It's a tearjerker. It's Andrew Garfield, who I love. I love Florence Pugh. They're great. It's a tearjerker. Like it's a dead mom story. Yeah. I think I gave it like a 58 or 57 or something like that, so I can't recommend. But I don't remember that much sex in it though. Like maybe there's kissing. It's definitely not like a sexy movie. It's about really good. Okay, so it's about really good physical storytelling. Where are the beats of the scene? What's the power play? Where does it start from? And who's doing what to whom? She told me here. Sorry, fingered in the kitchen. Here too, it helps to compare the work of intimacy coordination to choreographing a fight scene or framing a shot. The question is not what will happen in the story, but about how best to visually tell that story without compromising the integrity of the art or inflicting unnecessary discomfort on the actors. The director always speaks to the cast first, so the creative vision is absolutely out of the horse's mouth, she said. It's only when then will I speak to them. How do you feel about it? What do you want? What are your requirements? For instance, an actress who's about to film a scene might tell the intimacy coordinator that she would rather not have the cellulite on her left butt cheek captured on camera. A request the intimacy coordinator will then ensure is honored, unless for some reason the cellulite is somehow essential to the story. This is actually the second time I've interviewed O'Brien. We first spoke in 2019 when intimacy coordinators were only just beginning to become a regular presence on film and television sets. Her approach seemed reasonable to me then, and still does, just as you would have a stunt coordinator to create the illusionary spectacle that a character is in danger while keeping a real person out of harm's way. Surely sex scenes deserve similarly thoughtful planning. While critics have long derided intimacy coordinators as either an example of wokeness run amok or a cynical ass-covering move for movie studios trying to avoid sexual harassment lawsuits. True. That's me. I also found the arguments against them unpersuasive. I have my concerns about ideology intruding on our artistic freedom, which I've written about in these pages, but I just don't think an irrevocable downside into woke hell begins with someone offering knee pads to an actress who's about to spend 2 hours filming an acrobatic sex scene on a hardwood floor. Fair enough. Crucially,
yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I definitely think that there should be a balance there. I mean, you know, like I'm glad that Gwyneth Paltrow told the intimacy coordinator to step back, and I'm glad that the actors have the freedom to do that if they're sort of like, this is going to be a little too much, as long as it's not imposed, because ultimately it's for the actors' comfort. But if they're more comfortable winging it, then, you know, hopefully the intimacy coordinator is going to step in and be like, well, hold on.
Yeah,
I mean,
we don't want. Yeah, we don't want every sex scene to turn into an inadvertent threesome.
Right. Exactly.
Crucially, actors don't seem to think so either. Jonah Zhao, 36, who stars in the upcoming Marvel series Eyes of Wakanda, has been acting.
I know, stupid title.
Has been acting for long enough to have done on-screen intimacy in both the pre and post Me Too paradigm, so that working with intimacy coordinators, which she did from 2020 through 2024 on the Star series Hightown, where she played a stripper, has been a uniformly positive experience. It was my first time doing any sort of nudity, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone, she told me, because I've always been that person who's never been skinny dipping, never streaked. I was very modest when it came to exposing my body. It's worth pausing here to note that while sex scenes have taken on a political valence for activists and critics, actors generally don't think of them in these terms. Zhao wasn't worried about sexism or trauma, or that her director would surprise her by introducing the unscripted use of dairy products into a sex scene. She was worried about her underwear. I found out that you would be introduced to my character, Daisy, at the strip club where she was only wearing a G-string. And I was like, whoa, she said, laughing. And I would ask questions during the intimacy meeting, like, okay, a G-string, how big is the triangle that we have? How big can we make it? Can we get as big as humanly possible and still call it a G-string? Zhao had no objections, only questions. She was going to refuse to wear a G-string. She's a professional. She wasn't going to refuse to wear a G-string. She's a professional, and such things are sometimes part of the job. But when she arrived on set her first day of filming, she found that the intimacy coordinator had clearly understood the unspoken subtext of her questions, that all things being equal, and unless absolutely necessary, she would prefer to be slightly less naked. And indeed, the fearsome G-string was nowhere to be found. Instead, Zhao said, there was like a cowgirl outfit, a short skirt, a thong, and oh, I felt so relieved. Zhao also noted that it's not only women who might appreciate a little more open communication when it comes to on-screen intimacy, or benefit from having someone on set whose job it is to make sure they're comfortable. I did a short film when I was 16, and I had to do a kissing scene with a man in his 30s, she said. And I felt bad for him because I felt like he was uncomfortable because he was kissing a minor. Yeah. And is that even allowed? And then I was uncomfortable because he was uncomfortable. And despite the impression that intimacy coordinators represent the death of cinema, as the Free Press's River Page recently joked, the sex scenes don't hit as hard when you know that just slightly off screen there's a women's studies major with a clipboard gingerly nodding her head. Their reputation as joyless sexual hall monitors has certainly been exaggerated. For Zhao, once she had been on Hightown for a while, the meetings with the intimacy coordinator to discuss upcoming sex scenes became a little bit of a formality. The briefest of check-ins, like, oh, like, okay, Like, we'll be kissing. Yes. I think it's a very funny visual of just like women's studies major, like checking. No cellulite check.
We said 3 thrusts, not, and that was 4.
Right. 2. Stop. Cut. Cut. Too many thrusts. You'll hear from our lawyer. We're not a pair. True. In some cases, the reasons for having one might have more to do with compliance and helping actors refine their craft. Justin Baldoni has said that before. Blake Lively famously brought a sexual misconduct complaint against him as her co-star and director on the film It Ends With Us. The production had hired an intimacy coordinator to address any concern she might have. Lively skipped the meeting, Baldoni claimed, but even where they are a box-checking exercise, it's hard to see the harm in having one around. Outside the industry, it's easy to see intimacy coordinators as political, a result of sexual safetyism that swept America a decade ago. The truth is, for actors and directors alike, intimacy coordination is whatever you want and need it to be to create something beautiful. Certainly, this is all intimacy coordinators want it to be. This isn't about keeping people safe, Ida O'Brien said. It's about making really good art. We can be open, joyous, professional, creative, exciting, edgy, and everybody's having a good day at work. Unfortunately, this well-adjusted attitude doesn't extend to the media commentariat, whose total dearth of experience in movie making whose total dearth of experience in movie making hasn't stopped them from having many thoughts on how movies should be made. But for those busybodies who think that the use of intimacy coordinators should be mandatory, surely this is the one in which movie sex really is like the real thing. Once you've been invited into the bedroom, your opinion about what the various participants are doing in there would be better kept to yourself.
So a thought just came to me. You know how police body cams more often than not exonerate police officers when there's a complaint filed against them?
Yeah.
I wonder if this is, kind of a similar thing where it's sort of like something like a male actor, whenever something like, whenever the case of like the, Last Tango in Paris sort of thing, obviously the men are blamed and understandably so. And in that case, it's pretty clear cut. But I could also see, like, as a man, if I was a male actor and I'm filming a sex scene with a female, I would also kind of be like, okay, everything that I'm about to do to you right now, we cleared it. Okay. So don't come out and saying, hey, Joe's a little too rough with me. It's like, no, hey, we had a third party who said, hey, Joe's gonna be a little rough. This is what we're going to do. Or something, you know what I mean? I feel like that I can see from the guy's perspective how that could be a little bit like,
sure,
I'm not going to get canceled for this scene. So
agreed. And I also like, I don't think the intimacy coordination, the intimacy coordination industrial complex, is like if I remember correctly, the vast majority of the Me Too issues were not on screen. They may have had to do with actors.
Right.
A lot had to do with actors, but not what they were doing on screen. It's what they were doing off screen. So what they were doing in their trailers is what they were doing at parties. And besides this Blake Lively one that somewhat rings a bell, and I do have that movie on my watch list. I wonder if it's for that reason. But I like Kat, because I definitely was more of the snarky, like, oh, this is just one more woke thing, like one more you need to have like so many of X amount of type of people on your set, or you can't win an Oscar. Like, I figured that's more of what this was. And I do think maybe Kat's being a little credulous here in the fact that the person whose industry you're like is in question, right? Like, this is something that could go, like, trust me, the movie makers want to save money. They don't want to hire more professionals,
right?
Of course they're gonna not come out being like raging feminists, you know what I mean? Like, so Ida O'Brien, I'm not saying I don't believe her, but of course they're gonna moderate like what they do and say things like, oh yeah, we're here to make great art, instead of what the critics are saying. And I'm not saying that the critics are entirely right either. It's probably somewhat of a mix. But I do find, well, I think Kat is convincing in this article in terms of like at least helping form my opinion from what it was before reading it. I think that part of it is like, I mean, cui bono? Like, who benefits here? I would want you to interview, if possible, more actors who have done sex scenes.
Yeah.
Who have said, and not ones who were doing them in the 70s, right? I mean,
right.
actors who were doing sex scenes in 2017 and in 2022, or maybe not 2017, 2014 and 2022, and stuff like that. So, and she does have some in there, but I do think it'd be like people criticizing lawyers, which no one's ever done that before, and then just interviewing lawyers, being like, oh no, we're not trying to we're just representing our clients, and we're not trying to bilk every insurance company or restaurant slip and fall or ruin our client's ex-husband or whatever it is. Like, we're not trying to do that. Like, obviously, you wouldn't say those things. So that's all. But I do think it's definitely interesting. To conclude, my opinion is it should totally, if the actors don't want it and they're like, look, we got this. Yeah. Especially when you see like Mikey Madison, who won an Oscar, who's playing a sex worker and a lot of sex scenes. Then okay, you're sidelined. Right. They are a lot less officious than I thought they were, though. The intimacy coordinators.
Yeah, I mean, and it would also depend too. I mean, if I was a director and it's like, okay, there's a sex scene, but we're only going to see the shoulders up. You guys are going to be under a blanket. Do we really need an intimacy coordinator for this? Or can we just? It's going to be a short sex scene. It's not going to be a prolonged thing. Do we really need to bring an intimacy coordinator for this?
I mean, like anything though, it's like the government. It's once some thing is some agency is created, it's really hard to get rid of them. Yeah. As much as Trump and the Doge, it's hard to get rid of stuff. Yeah. People that instead of nixing it, they say, okay, now we'll use this to our advantage. Yeah. And the other party says we spend too much. And they go, all right, we'll use this to our advantage, or we need to get rid of it. And that just goes back and forth. So it's once this became a thing, I don't see it going anywhere, because God forbid, right? It's also like an insurance policy. God forbid something does happen. Will it ever happen like Last Tango in Paris again? I doubt it. At least not on any sort of major film. Maybe some independent film. Who knows? In
Eastern Europe or something.
Where they're not having any of these people. They're having other actors hold the boom mic or whatever, if they even have a boom mic. But God forbid something does happen and you cut the you cut the intimacy coordinators and there is some huge scandal. It'll just be Me Too tenfold. It'll just be the same. Bigger issues. So anyway, I think we exhausted that. Do you have anything else to say?
No.
All right then. Do you have a reckless wreck today, my friend?
I do, my friend.
Hit me with it.
I watched a pretty decent horror film. It came out last year. It's called Daddy's Head. It is not a gay porn or incest porn. Right. It's actually a pretty solid.
Bummer.
I know. Sorry to let you down, dude. It's actually a pretty decent.
I haven't even heard of
that. British folk horror film, and I thought it was,
Daddy.
Oh yeah. It's have you seen the Babadook?
I have, yes.
It's kind of a ripoff of that, but well, here's the thing though. So I think I've determined now that folk horror is probably my favorite subgenre of horror.
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of it, but it's good.
This film, so the basic plot of the film is that this woman, she had married this man who has a son from a previous marriage, but he passed away, so now she's stuck with the stepson, and she never wanted to have kids, so she's always right off the bat their relationship is kind of fraught. Mm-hmm. But after the husband passed away, the son starts seeing a creature with the husband's with his father's face on it, and it's this weird mongoloid creature. It's this really weird thing. That's because the dad, I think, used to be an architect. They have this really nice, fancy, stylish house, and it's surrounded by woods. So
it's always the houses surrounded by woods.
Yeah.
That's why I need to live somewhere where I can see my neighbors. I got them, I got them. I can see my whole block. I can see every neighbor.
I don't care if we're just surrounded by voyeurs. I don't care as long as
fine than some creepy ass daddy head creature.
Yeah. So it's a pretty solid film. I loved it. I shouldn't say I loved it. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
A few drawbacks. I mean,
don't spoil it. I want to watch.
No. I won't give anything major away, but I will say that it like the plot is pretty similar to the Babadook. It does have a few lame kind of cheap scares, which kind of bothered me because the film it's not a bloody, it's not a very gory movie. So I like the fact that there was a very good attempt at, and mostly successful attempt at focusing more on just being like really unsettling. Like you don't see the creature very often, but when you do, it's like just kind of like barely hidden through by shadows, where you're like I can't quite see the shape of it, sort of thing. Which is very effective. So when it leans more in that type of scare, it's really effective. But there are a few jump scares where it's sort of like you ran out of ideas and you went for the shit.
Yeah, I feel like directors can't help it.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Can't help it, and I wish. Actually, it's funny you say that because I thought recently about if like a horror movie, and I'm sure plenty exist, but like just with zero jump scares, like if you can think of any.
Yeah.
I off the top of my head, no, but I'm sure there's plenty, and that would be a fun topic to discuss.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think jump scares are cheap.
Yeah.
And I don't like when I watch a lot of horror, like as you know, like you do, and I rate and review movies, and I don't put, like, when I say a movie is scary, like I don't include that, because you could do that to anyone. And
if somebody's talking to me in the middle of a conversation and they go boo, like I'm probably gonna flinch, like just because that's a normal human reaction.
Exactly. And I agree. It's like so many times unnecessary and cheap.
Yeah. So the film has a few of those, which kind of cheapens the overall effect. Because I mean, it's a really well made film. Like, the acting's terrific. Like, I'm really invested in the relationship between the stepmom and the stepson, because it's also, that's kind of a unique relationship dynamic of this woman who married the guy because she wanted him, not the son. She doesn't hate the son, but she's just sort of like, now I'm just sort of stuck with you. But so I do like that relationship. The performances are good. The cinematography is really good. Like the use of shadows, the creature design is terrific. It does have some genuinely creepy scenes. But overall, my quibbles aside, it's a pretty solid, classily made horror film that doesn't rely on blood and guts and cheap, other than a few jump scares. It's pretty good, like modern horror film. So yeah, that's what I recommend. Check it out.
Good.
Brits are pretty good at horror. I think they got a good history of horror, I think.
Yeah, but the Brits are good.
Yeah.
Mine is a band I found today, and I haven't listened to much of their music. What to me it was, so the band's called The Paradox. Have you heard of them?
No.
So I thought this was fake, and this is where my brain is going with like AI and stuff. So first of all, they're pop punk. They sound like pop punk, which is not the most popular genre anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's not that's not popular as in people don't listen to it, but like new bands.
Right.
And second is the whole band is black.
Yep.
Which looks crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like black dudes with dreads, but they're singing about like the high school football captain and crying and it was such a mind fuck. And I was like, what is this fake? Like, is this AI?
Right.
But no, they're real. They're a real band.
Yeah.
They're somewhat brand new. It says they formed in like July 2024. They've already opened for like Green Day and some other bands like that. Like, again, Green Day is like 30 years old.
Yeah.
I think Green Day is like as old as I am.
Yeah.
Maybe like they're like 30, and they sound good. Like, I like them.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and this is why I'm pro cultural appropriation.
Yep.
Like that is white. Like pop punk is white culture, like white Southern California culture, and these are 4 black dudes from Atlanta.
Yep.
Making this music, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, and I think it's really cool. And I want to listen. Like, they don't even have an album yet. They only have a bunch of singles on Spotify. But I was just so surprised. I was like, wait, this is real? Anyway, so if you like pop punk music, check them out. They sound very like classic, that style. A little of that whininess. I know I was talking about like Armor for Sleep. They're not like Armor for Sleep, but like a little of that whininess, but fun, obviously upbeat, up tempo.
Yeah.
It was just very, very strange. But that's America. And I think that's very cool. That's a good,
definitely.
We should celebrate that.
Interesting. All right, I'll give them a listen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you really like that style of music, so you probably won't like it, but it's very
I did. I used to when I was.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah, I was really into like Blink-182 and
sure.
Green Day, and
I think they even say like Blink-182. But it's cool. What's crazy about it is, again, so much, and then we'll end. So much pop punk. It's like, well, like for instance, in What's My Name Again, he says, I called her dad from the payphone.
Yeah.
Like there's not even payphones anymore.
Yeah.
So it still has that old, like as recent as that feels to us. This is like 23 years ago, maybe older actually. Like what's my age again? That might come out in the late 90s. So it's like over 25 years ago.
Yep.
Where here they're talking about like nudes in your Snap, like Snapchat, or like stuff like that. Like that's very cool to hear modern stuff in music that immediately sends me to like 2002.
Right.
And I think that's really fun. So I'll be looking out for them, and I like them.
All right.
Well,
be sure to check us out.
Patreon.
We've got a Patreon.
Subscribe, please. We love you when you do that.
Yeah.
Share if you could, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
Please share with friends, share with Nana. And if you're so inclined, you can become a patron. 4 tiers starting at $3. All tiers contain merch. If you're not into that, that's fine. Still like, share, retweet. Whatever.
The holidays are coming up in about 6 months. So, if you have any joy in your heart and you want to give us an early Christmas present, we would happily accept that. We will not make fun of you for celebrating Christmas a little bit too early.
I thought you were saying my birthday.
No. That's right. Yeah, your birthday is coming up, isn't it?
That's right. What's my birthday, Joe?
I got it right here in my head. I know. It's the Saturday, the 28th.
No, it's 29th, but close.
Oh, that's when I had the reminder for it. What's funny?
Well, you actually had that in your phone? Wait, you had a reminder for my birthday in your phone?
Yeah, and it says Ben's birthday, I guess. I think you told me when it was, and I forgot when exactly. So I was like, I guess it's around here.
That's so sweet. I can't believe you have my birthday in your phone.
It's on the wrong day, but
yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Not that counts. So my brother's texting me like a week ahead of time. He's like, happy birthday. I'm like, dude. And it's easy to remember your birthday because it's
Cinco de Mayo. That's
right.
Exactly.
A holiday. And I'm kidding. Your birthday is September 8th.
That's right. Good boy.
I know that because you're Virgo, as I like to say. Last September birthdays in my life. And yours.
All right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, stay reckless, everybody, and fight the crits.
Fight the crits.